Welcome back. It is week 3 of National Nutrition Month, and this week we're going to be talking about the dietary guidelines. Now, some people may not know what the dietary guidelines are, so I just want to take a moment to talk about that. The dietary guidelines are set forth every 5 years, and they are set forth by the U.S. Department of Agriculture along with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. These guidelines are used to shape federal nutrition policy in this country. So the recommendations that these two organizations come up with are going to be used when they're planning for programs like the WIC program, the SNAP program, which is also known as food stamps, and even programs like Meals on Wheels. Now, there's a lot that goes into planning the dietary guidelines, but I want to make this as simple for you as possible and give you 10 takeaways from these guidelines that you can apply to your everyday life. So the first 3 of the takeaways we really talked about during week 2. Number 1 is that healthy eating is for life. Remember that you want to eat to live and not live to eat. The second takeaway is that informed choices are important. Remember, when you're shopping, when you're out to eat, when you're at the fast food restaurant, that you're making the healthiest choice that you can majority of the time. The third takeaway is that healthy eating is not restrictive. And again, we spoke about this last week. You want to make sure that you keep in mind that there are many different ways that you can combine healthy foods to make them attractive and flavorful for you and your family. The fourth takeaway really goes into talking about what it takes to maintain a healthy diet. So what the guidelines recommend is that you have a variety of fruits and vegetables, that you eat whole grains, low fat or fat-free dairy products, lean meats, and plant-based oils. Now, we'll go into a little bit more detail about all of these food groups during week 4, so I do encourage you to stay tuned for the rest of National Nutrition Month. Now, the fifth takeaway is something that we hear about all too often. Limit your intake of added sugar. Now, the key word there is added sugar. Remember that things like fruit do have sugar, but sugar in the fruit is naturally occurring when that fruit comes out of the ground or falls off of the tree. A candy bar also has sugar, but a candy bar has sugar that's added to it along with other ingredients to make up that final product. The next takeaway is that you want to limit your intake of saturated fat and trans fats. Trans fats you don't see too much anymore. However, saturated fat is something that we do tend to use quite often. So what you want to keep in mind is that saturated fats are any oil that you may be cooking with or using that is a solid at room temperature. Now, the next takeaway is about sodium. Sodium is basically your standard table salt, and that is something that all of us want to be limiting as much as possible. Again, just like sugar, it is naturally occurring in some foods, but what you're looking at is limiting adding it to things where it's not necessarily needed. Now, the next takeaway is really important. I just mentioned a lot of things that are recommended in the dietary guidelines, and what you want to understand is that small changes are okay. We do not expect you to do all of these things at once or to be able to just overnight wake up and have all of these changes have take place in your life. If you're only able to do one of the things I've mentioned before, that's fine. If you do one thing, that will lead you to doing the next thing, and then you'll be stair-stepping your way to a healthier lifestyle. Speaking of stair steps, that leads to the next takeaway. Be active. Now, personal training and fitness is not my background, but I can tell you that if you are living an active lifestyle, that is definitely going to help you along with making the correct food choices. And to sum this all up, the final takeaway is that it takes a village to make all this happen. You can't just rely on the schools to teach proper healthy eating and lifestyle changes. It's going to take the community. It's going to take the grocery stores. It's going to take making these changes in your home. All of us have to work together to make sure that each and every person is able to live a healthy and happy lifestyle. So again, just remember that although the dietary guidelines may seem really complicated, if you stick to those 10 takeaways, you will be on your way to living a happy, healthy lifestyle.